finish. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Talking About the Big Stuff podcast with Michael Cole and Matthew Cravat. I am Michael Cole.
And I am Matthew Cravat.
All right. Today, we are talking about relationships, specifically romantic relationships. I've wanted to talk about monogamy versus other options for a while, and Sarah isn't interested in having that conversation, so I'm having it with you. No. Actually, it's been on my topic list for probably almost a year. I kept hoping that I'd get, there's a couple of friends that I think would be good to have on about this topic, and it never came up, never worked. So, but I think it's an important one. You mentioned, your go-to joke. You always have to make a joke whenever I recommend a topic. Well, your joke today was that you would only do this topic with me, and then I was thinking about the fact that I'm about to launch a second podcast with two other friends that aren't you. And I was like, this is kind of the perfect episode. The other two podcast hosts that so we will announce that in the next month or so, what that podcast is going to be. But I just thought it was funny that you mentioned that. And I got a special cup for this episode.
You had to drink it upside down.
Yeah, I said to Sarah, I'm like, do you have any decorations that are pineapples that I could like stick up upside down on the wall, on the door or something? And she's like, I don't think so. And Logan goes, I know just the thing. No, we didn't explain to Logan why. But
having our tropical conversation, that's all it is, Logan.
Yeah. So obviously I think monogamy will come into play in the conversation that I want to have with you, but I think if we focus on non-monogamy, that will help us because I think
improve our relationship.
Well, I was gonna say I think that monogamy is, for lack of it's the standard. It's what people would consider the default a lot of times, and so I think the people
or supposed monogamy is.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Think about how many people cheat
right.
because they're not in a relationship where they're allowed to be non-monogamous. I like to say non-monogamous, not polyamorous, because I think polyamory is just wrong on every level. I mean, the idea of taking the Greek poly and the Roman amorous and jamming them together is just wrong. That just shouldn't be done.
Yeah. From linguistics, yeah, that's
linguistically.
Yeah.
Be polydelphic.
Well, it's funny that you bring up the non-monogamy versus polyamory, because the reason I've been using the term non-monogamy is I think it's a more encompassing term. Polyamory, I think, and this is going to be one of those this is going to be one of those many, many topics where us two white guys are not really completely qualified.
You could be a white guy and be into poly.
No, but we're not, though. So we're like,
we're not.
Yeah, that we know of, that I know of. But so there's a bunch of different categories of non-monogamy.
I just wonder, you're talking about me or you're talking about Sarah? So you don't know if you're monogamous.
I meant you. I'm confident that Sarah is monogamous. I don't know when she would have time.
So I have to say this. A bunch of years ago, I met the highest person in my religion, Dr. Darrell Ray, who is the head of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. He's like the grandpa. He wears a pirate hat. He's wonderful. But Dr. Ray is a therapist, and he's into healthy sex and positive sex talk. And he did a talk for Triangle Free Thought Society. And his first thing he said, it was early in my days of Triangle Free Thought, one of the first talks I went to. And he was like, raise your hand if you're monogamous. If you're in a monogamous relationship, you're completely monogamous, raise your hand. And most people raise their hand, and he goes, I feel sorry for you. All you do is jerk off all day, like just one person in your relationship. You don't have a second. Find somebody.
Yeah.
So,
I actually think that,
and put that hand down. It's probably not clean.
This is my left hand. I'm a right hand. Okay. So I think that um, that's a good place to start because even though I did think, oh, I've been in a relationship with just myself before, and then I've been in relationships with a partner multiple times. I've never been in any kind of.
Serial monogamy.
Mhm. But then I was thinking about the fact that like, so this is kind of what started this is what kind of started the idea of me wanting to talk about this and beyond. This is before the podcast started. I read an
I had been
article.
thinking this since the day after my wedding.
No, I read an article.
There was this one waitress.
I read an article like 4 or 5 years ago, and it was about all the different open marriages in Hollywood, and there was something about Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn, and there was a couple other ones, and the one in 2024, the one that is now going to sound so weirdly cliche, but at the time was new information to me, was Will and Jada. And in the bit about Will and Jada, it mentioned something. This was before all the stuff came out about her younger man boyfriend. But there had been something else, and it said, I don't know. The article, the person writing the article wrote, I don't know if they are in some kind of open marriage or not. But one thing's for sure, somebody's cheated here. And I was like, that's a weird takeaway.
Grammatically, again, there's a problem. If you don't know if they're in open marriage, you don't know someone's cheating.
Right.
Because it's only if they're not in an open marriage.
But I also think that opened up my thinking a lot, which is like the we think about cheating, and everyone tends to find that they want to define cheating as what is cheating in my relationship applies to everybody. And so, like, if you think about it that way,
you get that a lot with anything that's a morality-based thing. My personal morality is clearly what the entire world should be using.
Yeah, but it is in like
this is just an example of it. But yeah,
yes,
yeah,
but and I think though that this is one of those things where I think people don't even see the debate for it, and so like when you look at like okay, Kirk Cameron for example, Kirk Cameron does not. He's an actor, but he does not kiss other people other than his wife, which, whatever. Then you look at most other Hollywood actors. Kissing in this context of a shoot is not cheating for those people, typically.
I mean, up to that personally, when I was either in plays or just in improv scenes, kissing other people on the stage, Madhavi didn't have an issue with. If I said I was kissing so-and-so in rehearsal, she wouldn't be so thrilled because there's no need to kiss someone in rehearsal.
Yeah. And yet you and Mikey. You've told me several times about kissing him, and I'm just,
it's the other thing about her being okay with it is I would just as fast to kiss every gender on the stage.
Yeah.
I've had 3 different genders on stage. I kiss all of them. That's not a deciding factor. The deciding factor is, does it make the story or scene better, or does it get a laugh? And not at a laugh at it, ew, they're kissing. That's not the laugh we're going for. And most of our audience isn't that audience anyway.
Right. So I think that that's just like a good starting point, which is to say that like people want to assign. So like I think that the average person that is not in acting would say kissing is a form of cheating. But then I think back to when I was 19 or 20 and a relationship that a more adult relationship, people who were older than me, we had heard about there being some cheating, and a friend said, "Oh, do you think she was kissing other people?" And his girlfriend was like, "No, clearly they're talking about fucking. Like this is not just kissing, like based on context." And because when you transition,
you can say who you were talking about. We're talking about the Clintons. I mean, clearly
no.
I did not have sex with that woman. I just stuck things in her vagina and stuck things in her mouth. I didn't have sex with her.
Yeah, but no, but like I think that that's the other thing is where are you in your life? So like in high school, in middle school and high school, as your relationships progress, cheating becomes a different process. But also like your understanding in your relationship, you make the rules. So like there's married porn stars, and they're doing they're
Their spouse is the director of a movie they're in.
yeah, and maybe both of them are having sex with other partners on screen, and that's okay. And maybe outside of filming, they are monogamous otherwise. And then I'm sure there's ones who are no, we're poly all the time, and and
My girl likes to poly all the time, poly all the time, poly all the time. My girl likes to poly all the time. Do you know who wrote that?
I know
You
who
know who wrote it?
performed it, Eddie Murphy, right?
Okay. Yeah, yeah, it's Eddie. I just didn't know. Like, I thought it might be. I know you're a comedy aficionado, but that might have been too far before your time
There was
to know
a
he did a non-funny uh,
There was
song.
a Mad TV sketch about it, which I think it was Mad TV, and it was an updated version for the new millennium, and it was my girl likes to email all the time, and it was like it was a shitty Mad TV joke. Um,
But anyway,
but
yeah,
anyway,
it's I have a big issue with the cheating and open relationship being mixed
hmm
in people's minds. Cheating is the act of lying about it. If it's something that's in the open and it's not being lied about, it's not cheating.
yeah, well, and I think
You know, oh,
cheating is breaking the rules, and so
yeah,
you make the rules of your relationship. For example,
yeah,
I joke a lot of times when people at work want to go to a restaurant that Sarah has been trying to get me to go to. They want to go for lunch or whatever, and I say, "Oh no, I can't go there with you." She would consider that cheating, and like that's because like she wants me to go there with her for the first time. That's a rule, kind not officially, and she wouldn't be really pissed depending on the context, but like the rules of your relationship define what is cheating. Just like you can do certain things in one game and not in another game, and it's when I was with my ex girlfriend, we had different rules than I have with Sarah. Like and so that's why like I agree with you about the lying part. I think the lying comes into play.
and I think lying is inherently part of the rules. I mean, like
Yeah,
because you'd only lie if it's against the rules. And
yeah, and I think and then you get into the idea of people talk about emotional cheating versus physical cheating, and I think that comes into play with like I as far I may misuse some terms here. I'm not trying to misrepresent. I just may be ignorant to it, but like polyamory, for example, I believe is having the ability to love and be in relationships with multiple people, whereas an open relationship might be, yeah, like I don't care if you go, have sex but I don't want you to I don't want you to catch feelings. And then there's
so
swinging, which is, as far as I am understanding, swinging is almost is wife swapping. So it's like, yeah, you get to bang her husband, and I get to bang her.
I have so many friends who've been in different situations in these, and like so everything you've said, I know examples of
Yeah.
in my personal life. I don't know which one's the one to go with first. I'm going to go with the one I wasn't that I was a kid for. When I was a teenager, I had a girlfriend whose parents, well, father and his common law wife, they were never legally married, but they lived in Pennsylvania, where the fact they lived as husband and wife meant they were married, so there was common law, and they were swingers ish. I don't know how if they swung widely,
Yeah.
but I know that they and another couple would hot tub together and disappear in different rooms together when I was over there visiting, like see them giggling and break off. And then at some point in their relationship, they swapped permanently. Like they stopped swinging together, but the my girlfriend's stepmom went off with the other guy, and the other woman moved in, and um, so my ex's father and the woman that he got in that deal are still together, and it's been 40 years, and they're still together, and the other woman and guy were together for a decade, maybe. I mean, a good long time. It wasn't just a
Yeah.
little, fling.
And
Yeah.
so
So that was
that's an
it's
interest.
interesting, like swapping. And I don't know that, like, I never heard stories from my ex again, and we're still friends about the new couples swing. They're certainly not swinging together, and I don't
Yeah.
know if they swung at all. Like I think they both. Hey, I was swinging because I wasn't with the person I really wanted to be monogamous with. Like then they were
I'm curious in that situation, and maybe you don't know the answer to this, but like, was the breakups amicable or
friends for years.
okay?
Yeah, yeah. They're part of the folk music organization that I was with, and they
Yep.
were at folk festivals together, hung out together for years. Yeah.
Um, no, but I just curious because I one of the things that whenever I've had this conversation about like I at some point and since I met Sarah, so many of my belief systems have changed. So I'm no longer a religious person.
What?
I was in the process of I know, right? With a face like this, you'd think I've got to be, but because only God could
With a
love
name like Smuckers, it's got to be good.
me. I was in the transition already when I met her, but I was going from from conservative to liberal, and now I'm like pro- wildly progressive. And one of the things when I met her, and I want, I've always wanted to be married, and I wanted to be married and have kids by like 25 years old. I was neither of those things, but when I met her, I knew pretty quickly that I wanted to marry her, and I I believed, because I have my parents as a role model. I wanted to be married, and so I'm the one who pushed for
And
marriage.
I know from previous episodes, your parents have a perfect relationship. Are they the most loving people in the world?
I don't know exactly what you're referring to.
I'm just saying that. That's what I've taken away.
Oh, okay, great. I do know what you're referring to now. You don't have to go that wild on the swing. You could just leave it alone. Uh, so I don't think she's watching. um, but yeah, I'm the one who pushed. Sarah says it all the time that hadn't, if I hadn't proposed, she doesn't think our lives would be much different at all. And so, and she and I have talked a bunch about how we look at the idea of monogamy and kind of think like, oh, it fails fairly often. I mean, monogamy doesn't fail, but like
If you're trying to
the
be
attempt at
monogamous,
monogamy
you
fails
may fail at it. Yeah.
as often, and so but you get into that conversation even with somebody who doesn't necessarily think monogamy is the only way, or that she doesn't think necessarily that monogamy works for on mass, but it's going to work for us. That's what she always says.
Yeah,
Um,
but it
but like,
uh, it's weird though because it's like, is it that monogamy doesn't work, or do people marry people they shouldn't marry, or
sure,
live in a yeah,
yep. Oh, so
like I always said to my son, you don't marry the person you can spend the rest of your life with. You marry the person you can't spend the rest of your life without.
yeah,
If
I
it's too shallow, it ain't gonna last.
yeah, I agree with
And I
that.
mean, even a perfect relationship cannot last because you grow differently. I don't want to.
Yeah,
Don't at me, bros. I'm not saying all relationships were mistakes. I'm just saying to even have a chance, you better be
you're
starting
just
with me.
saying that monogamy is slavery, and
Not all Jews the same. I'm not Eli.
um, so no, so we've talked about it, and even from a monogamy isn't always what it's cracked up to be kind of situation. I get pushback on the idea that polyamory is even an option. Not necessarily. I get pushback on that way, like when I'm joking about that, but like I can see why people can't understand how it could work because it only gets more complicated when you add more people. But at the same time,
Again, it also depends on which flavor you're talking about.
mhm,
Is it casual? A relationship is open that if I'm on a business trip, I can hook up, or is it I have a girlfriend who I need to go see 2 nights a week because we spend so much time together.
yeah, I think that's true. I also think that like we live in a society that has told us monogamy is the norm so much that it has been ingrained in so many of us that
It's ironic considering the Bibli is the whole Old Testament is non-monogamous.
yeah. But like it's so ingrained in some people that I think even if two people agree to it, are they equally there and ready for it? You know what I mean? And I think that probably becomes an issue as well when you look at like, oh yeah, like I mean, there's an I think there's a at the beginning of a relationship, which is realistically, I would think you need to kind of start from the beginning. I think it's probably harder to double dutch your way in from a monogamous to a non-monogamous, but I could be wrong. Um, I think when you look at the beginning of a relationship, there is that like I am willing to kind of play chicken a little bit in this relationship, and you know like oh I don't really want to do that thing, but I don't want to be the uncool girlfriend, or I don't want to be the guy who doesn't go to brunch with her and her friends or whatever the case may be. And so I wonder if when you're starting, is there a certain level of pressure to meet the other one's expectations for the relationship and not communicate properly? And so I think that probably becomes part of the complication that I could imagine.
And I know a couple, I'll say, I know an ex-couple who's, I mean, I'm sure our relationships end for 1,000 reasons, but one thing that was a strain on their relationship was they had both kinds of polyamory slash open, where one of the people just wanted to screw around, and the other person had a second significant other for years and like come on vacation with us and be part of our lives, and
Come on
they were all
vacation.
friends, like
Come.
they weren't a throuple.
Yeah.
There was no same sex attraction between I'm trying to keep it gender neutral, but
Yeah.
it was like best friend who comes with us everywhere. But over time, it became the person who was just hooking up was like, I really didn't intend to have a second spouse in the house. Like, that's not what I was looking for. And
Yeah.
the other person was like, yeah, I'm not the kind of person who goes and sleeps around. If I'm going to sleep with someone, I need an emotional connection.
Yeah.
So they both wanted separate things outside of the marriage. And I don't know that that's why their marriage broke up. There may be 100 other reasons,
Yeah.
but that was always a stressor that neither one of them was happy with what the other one was doing 100%. They were both like, well, I'll let you do what you want to do so I can do what I want to do, kind of thing.
Yeah. And that's why I think that there's a belief from people who are not in consensual non-monogamous relationships as opposed to just cheating, um, where I think that people who are in as far as they know monogamous relationships think that can't work. It's more complicated. It is a more
And I
complicated
have another
situation.
friends who currently who are swingers, and they try to convince other couples, who are not, and they hit on us a lot for a while early in the relationship before they decide, okay, not going to happen, and they stop hitting on you and you're just friends, but they're working their way through the group.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have like another friend who she's bi and she likes to bring girls home for threesomes. Like she doesn't really want one-on-one relationship outside of her marriage, but she loves to have a girlfriend for short periods of time for the two of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, we got a new person on the pod.
Nice. Yep.
Belladonna on the pod.
We haven't seen her butthole before on the pod.
She's shorter.
Yeah.
She goes by, you just see the top of her tail.
Yeah. So, I think that I wish we had somebody that I could have gotten on to talk about non-monogamy, but um, I've been adjacent to it enough. I've never participated, but I've been adjacent to it enough that I thought this is an interesting thing to talk about, and I think it's something that people just don't know about. I think,
Yeah, and the amount of people I know who are in one or the other scene and community for it leads me to believe that we know a lot more people that we don't know are in
yeah,
the scene. Like they don't walk around telling everybody, so
yeah, they just hang a different kind of loofah on their golf cart.
yeah.
Do,
I mean,
do
it's
you
like
know about that
I know
reference?
I know these people. No, I don't loofah. I don't.
There's a retirement community in Florida, I think called the Villages, and Sarah was telling me that different colored loofahs mean different. You want different things, so you hang your
I want
loofah
someone with Parkinson's disease
because the shake.
because it's like a vibrator.
um, no, but you just hang it like, oh, I want a threesome, or we want a swing, or whatever. So So anyway, I did have a point before that I was going to say. You go ahead. Go ahead.
They're just saying we were just saying that the amount of people you know, how many people are into a scene that you just don't know. Like there's some that like I know because they chose to try to offer my wife and I to join them.
Yeah.
But like, so I assume not every open relationship couple we know finds us attractive. So just because two did, doesn't mean,
Yeah.
like another one, like my friends who broke up who wanted different things, every like they were just completely out about it. One of them would show up and say, "Oh, I met the coolest person this weekend. It was amazing." They didn't, at least in our friend circle, they were completely out. I'm sure at work they weren't.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm all.
So just figure, but laws averages, someone you work with currently is in an open relationship, just hasn't offered you.
I don't
I
know.
like your eyes instantly went up in the back of your head as you're trying to picture each person having sex and figure which one it was.
I'm not trying to picture. I gave up on that a long time ago.
Oh, god damn. You're trying to hear them having sex through the wall.
Early, I would say early 20s, Mike used to do an amazing job at. If you picked somebody that we both knew, I would do an impression of them having sex that was mocking them. And I did a lot with managers when I worked at Home Depot. I'd be like, "Oh, he's so hyper all the time." It would probably be like, "Okay, we got 3 seconds," and I would do impressions of people fucking, and I was very good, by the way. Actually, that went on till into my mid
I mean, you
20s.
don't really know if you're good at it unless you then get to follow up and watch them fuck.
I did. I always
Okay,
did. I
that's
always
good to
went
know
to their house, hid in the closet, and I was like,
then.
perfect. Um,
Yeah, I did research before I did the impersonation. I didn't just improvise. None of this improv crap.
no, none of that. One of the things I was going to say is that some of the language and the metaphors that I would use to try to explain or understand polyamory in the past, when I was, when I was talking to other people about it, I kind of think have become problematic. And so there's that side of things too, which is like, I don't think that the points are wrong, but I think that the examples used, like when you and I had the first conversation with Alex, we kind of touched upon it, but like, not in polyamory, obviously, but in culture, and that
I
is,
didn't touch him. I don't know what you were doing.
you know, but I think that while there is a logical sense to equate, like culture, for example, with food, say like, oh, I like different foods. Why wouldn't I like different cultures? I think sexually, especially guys, when we're talking about like, well, yeah, sometimes you want pizza, and sometimes you
I'm
want,
on a diet, but I want to look at the menu.
and sometimes you want Chinese food, and you know, and I think that's a common. I think that's been a pretty common thing. I think for guys, in how I have looked at it in the past, and I've heard other men express similar things, and I think that the sentiment, like the concept, isn't wrong, but like it
I think
equates
it's more like
people with a buffet or a menu.
I like experiencing sunsets and I like experiencing sunrise and occasionally the aurora borealis
Yeah,
and sometimes two shooting stars at the same time.
right next to each other, so you get the shooting star all over both. Um, and how can the sunset love you back? That's all I have to ask you.
Hello, sweetie.
We watched that episode
That's my
last night.
favorite episode.
It was
My favorite
it
episode.
was so good, and I did not really remember. I was like, oh, Greg. I know Greg Davies is in it, and I know.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, you are not the podcast audience I thought you were.
Do you think anybody that listens to this podcast watches Doctor Who?
Well enough to know
Sarah,
from one line which episode you're talking about.
Sarah, and if Madhavi watches, like, listens to the podcast, that is it. Logan's not allowed to listen to the podcast, especially this episode. So, but yeah,
Husbands of River Song, the best Doctor Who episode. But ironically, the one episode you can't watch if you don't watch Doctor Who. You have to have seen 20 other particular episodes
mm-hmm.
first before that one's any value. It is a Doctor Who fans episode, but then it's
Yeah.
perfect if you are one.
Logan has seen all the lead-up episodes, and he still didn't fully get it, I don't think. I had to explain a lot of it. Also, good episode when we're talking about polyamory.
Yeah,
I
yeah, I think so.
I used to when I was younger, like I think everyone's done the mental. Well, every guy has done the mental exercise of if I travel back in time and fuck myself, is it masturbation or is it gay?
Not every guy has done that. Some people never even thought that was something to think about.
No, every guy. um,
Some of us think about cloning. Now, if you cloned yourself,
yeah, I've said to Sarah
I
though.
don't want to be my own grandfather. That's not going to work.
I said to Sarah though, I'm like, what if like we've talked about it, and then you get into like, you did you read or watch the Time Traveler's Wife?
No.
Okay, I read the book and I watched the TV show. I haven't seen the movie, but in the book, actually in both versions, because it's very similar to the River um, Doctor relationship. That's kind of what he based the River Doctor relationship on. They're often not meeting in time correctly. So like on her 18th birthday, 40-year-old him shows up and she's like, "It's my 18th birthday. It's time we fuck." And he's like, "Well, 36-year-old you is like at home waiting for me to get back, and I don't know that she wants me fucking 18-year-old you." And then he, there's the other part where like he'll go forward and he'll see older versions of her, and she hooks up with that version. It's like, oh, like this is like multiple people in this relationship because he changes significantly and she does as well.
You can't step in the same um, piece of water twice.
Deep. It's deep. So anyway, um, I don't know. I just was thinking about the Husbands of River song and how I love River. She is one of my favorite characters. So
So we were in at a science fiction convention in a panel. It was just not a panel; it was just her. I mean, so in her, you know, room when they announced Jodie Whittaker was the next Doctor,
mm.
and um, the and people had asked her earlier if she knew anything, and she doesn't have no idea. I don't know anything about who they're going to do. And then like the news came out, like, and we were all seeing it on our phones, and people were saying, "Oh, they announced it," and and she's like, "Who did it?" And Madhavi yelled out Jodie Whittaker before anyone else, and like the clip of Alex Kingston finding out about Jodie Whittaker went semi-viral like on social media, and it was clearly Madhavi's voice yelling it out in the clip.
Nice.
Like there was no image of her; it was because it was cameras were all on Alex, but clearly her voice yelling out Jodie Whittaker. And then she was like, "Ooh, Jodie Whittaker, I like that. Maybe I get to snog her."
I mean,
And there is the line in Husband's River Song where she goes, "You remind me of one of my wives," to the Doctor,
yeah,
which would make sense.
yeah, that's a good line. They with Jodie Whittaker though they did queer bait quite a bit with her and Yaz,
Well,
um,
by the end, they fully admitted it. I mean, there was all. By the end, it was
but they never
beyond baiting.
gave into it. Really, they like admitted it, but they
Yeah,
never.
yeah, they didn't have. I mean, yeah, I mean, the Doctor doesn't have relationships with infants.
But
River is kind
yeah,
of the exception for physical relationship because she's hundreds of years old,
and
because
Rose
she's part Time Lord.
and
Yeah, but the Time Lord Doctor never has a physical relationship with Rose. He falls for her, but he doesn't have a physical relationship
yeah,
until they split, and that's a new baby Doctor who goes off with her,
who
who's
has all
mortal.
the memories of
But
the.
his mortal will age normally, at least. It's not, you know,
Sure, okay, that
and
is,
he's part Donna. He's got Donna memory, so mix that into it. They're a throuple.
yeah. Yeah. Sarah used to be very opposed to the word thruple because I think she thought that it was a weird, like, niche word that I didn't make up necessarily, but like nobody else used. And so she'd be like, don't say that. It's gross. And she's finally kind of given into not,
You should know stuff like that. That's too much into a culture you're not supposed to be in.
nah, I know lots of shit. I think,
There was this. There was these people on social media who were this throuple who all the time, and there was a big deal about them getting married, and then they were on Say Yes to the Dress, which my wife and daughter watch religiously. And I was like, oh, I know them. I've seen them on Instagram forever. And I'm like, well, I'll show you. And we went to look them up. And you know, those episodes are filmed months in advance. And they had broken up and left social media um, before the wedding. So like they had the Say Yes to the Dress episode, and they got too famous, I guess, and they broke up. So I got the social media. The last thing was like their goodbye posts. I'm like, oops, never mind.
yeah, yeah. Um, I really don't have as much to say about this topic as I thought I did. I think everything I want to say, everything I keep thinking now is like, oh, well, that's kind of related, but really just shows me as in a poor light that I would say that. Like I've thought a lot about, like, I think threesomes are, which I kind of a form of polyamory. Threesomes are, or non-monogamy, but I think they should not be. In my experience, I can't imagine being in a relationship and a threesome not having a lasting effect, because I have been with people who are jealous, I think, and would be like real um in
I think there's a definite big chance it can. So it's a big risk doing it. It can, but I think it also can be a thing that doesn't have a long term. I mean, I think it can
yeah,
go either way. I don't think it's 100% safe doing
yeah,
that, but I also don't think it has to have. I think you really have to have both people in the relationship totally on board with what they're doing, what's going to happen,
yeah,
what the limits are, and knowing themselves. Because the real risk is, yeah, that sounds like a cool idea, and then seeing it and being jealous.
yeah. When
So it's risky even if you don't know yourself really well, know really what you're into and what you're not.
Yeah, when I was young, a friend of mine had a threesome with his girlfriend, and they had set up the rules ahead of time, and so like they were both allowed to go down on the the girl or woman. She was an adult.
She was 12. The girl, come on, let's be honest.
Um, I don't think he was allowed to. I don't think he was allowed to stick his penis in her in any hole. Again, I don't like the way I'm sounding in this.
So the no penetration
Nope.
allowed, but it was both. It was the couple on the unicorn not reciprocating with him
Right. I've never heard the unicorn term before.
because you can't find one. They're mythical. The woman
Oh.
who wants to have sex with you and your girlfriend.
Gotcha. I've met some rhinos, but and a giraffe. I used to work with this guy, and he was hilarious, not on purpose. He had this like hardcore North Shore, Massachusetts accent, and he said one time, this woman came in. She was probably 6'1", 6'2", and he goes, "Mike, I would go up on her." And Sarah and I still talk about it to this day.
So I've been with my wife a long time, so there's been a lot of times I've seen attractive women, and I'm like, honey, how about her? Would you do with her? And there was only one time that she said yes, 100%. Unfortunately, it was when we were watching Wayne's World, and it was Tia Carrera. So the odds of making it happen, she, seeing when Tia Carrera comes out like smoke blowing in lingerie, and mother goes, okay, I get it now. Yeah, I could do that. But
I don't
go
want to
find her.
imply anything bad about Tia Carrera, or anything that is untrue about Tia Carrera, but I would say that if it was a possibility, um, if we got a Patreon goal where we offered Tia Carrera half of our Patreon goal.
I don't know if this decade's Madhavi and this decade's Tia Carrera are the same conversation.
True. Yeah, that's a good point.
She was like, I would want to watch you with her, but that may not be the case anymore.
Sarah liked to do this thing. She did it. She really did it once, but she did it twice technically, where we saw this like absolutely smoke show of a woman, and like not. I don't think she was definitely not like illegal, but I don't think she was age inappropriate. I think she was probably Sarah's age, maybe a little younger, but not much. And we were at a wedding for a certain business partner of ours, and she was the wedding planner, and she was like, and I was the best man in the wedding, and she was so hot, just like so hot, and we're hanging out with the bride and groom, and she comes over after, this is after the wedding, after they've done the first dance and the speeches and all the other shit, all the like official shit that you have to do. So she comes over and she goes, well, now that you guys are just in like the normal part of the reception, I'm probably going to take off for the night. She gives them each like a hug or whatever. And she's leaving. The doors close behind her, and Sarah leans over and goes, "That's the first woman I've ever considered it with." And I'm like, "What?" And she's gone from our
Chase her
lives.
out the door.
She's gone from our lives forever. And
So it's funny. Mikey had a similar story where there was a woman who was involved in our theater who was attractive and very sex positive and would talk very openly about relationships she had and guys she had dated that the weekend before and whatever have you. And one at some point there was Mikey and his wife had a falling out with her on things at the theater, just work related things making the theater run. And Debbie was all pissed off. And as they leave, Debbie turns to Mike and goes, "That's it. There was once upon a time there was a chance of a threesome with her, but it's gone now." And Mikey's like, "Is there a list? Can I know what this list is? Who's on this list?"
yeah. Just to make it clear on my story, though, Sarah would never have actually done it. She just thought it was funny to fuck with me, and
Never's a long time. Like I say, Madhavi always said, "Find me a woman I'm attracted to," and then Tia Carrere was the only one ever. But so far, we ain't dead yet. We're gonna be in a nursing home someday, and we're gonna have our loofahs, and we'll find out.
yeah, I'll need the loofah code when you crack it, so that I can just know what it is. Because I like having the knowledge of a lot of this shit. Like,
I'm just gonna buy every fucking loofah and just have like a bouquet.
I just like knowing the references.
Hi, Bruno. What are you doing here?
Yeah, because I like when someone will make reference to something thinking no one else gets it, and I do. So, like, the pineapple thing, it's not like, this is not a super secret. The upside down pineapple is not a super secret thing, but there's occasions where, like you mentioned sounding earlier, and like there's been times when I'm watching something. Oh, Sarah and I were watching the what the fuck was that reality show called? The Ultimatum season 2 reunion, and there's this guy who's real quiet in the episode, and his girlfriend that she was really sweet, and they were both like very they were unassuming, and then they get to the reunion and they're like, there's a lot of shit that we kind of cut out because it didn't fit the storyline, but there's a different side of you guys, and he was really into BDSM with her, and they start showing it, and he goes, "I just don't want my grandma to find my sounding rod." And I start laughing, and Sarah looks and goes, "What's a sounding rod?" And I'm like, "I think they're gonna tell you." And Nick Lachey is one of the hosts. Him and his wife are the hosts, and they're both like, "What's a sounding rod?" Everybody on set is like, "What's a sounding rod?" And I was like, "Oh, this is gonna get good." And then they explain the sounding rod, and they're like, all the guys are like, "Oh." That is something I know about. That is not something I've ever tried, but I enjoy knowing that stuff. I love knowing, if somebody makes a reference to a sounding rod or a blumpkin, or I know some of them are very common, but commonly used. I don't think blumpkins are actually common.
But they're used commonly, though.
The term, some terms are commonly used.
It reminds me of
Because of Howard Stern.
When I was a teen, and my dad said, "I need to have a talk with you about porn." And I was like, "Uh-huh." And he goes, "I know you're going to watch porn," because I was teen in the days of VCR, when you can get porn on VCR.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you stay up late enough on Cinemax, you get softcore. And he goes, "Just want you to realize what goes on in porn is not how relationships really work. The things people like, not necessarily what they like. The way they do it, not the real life way they do it. There's some things that you can watch and you can do, and people will like it, but not everything. So you just don't believe everything you see." And I like to think he means that plumbers don't show up in the middle of the day 5 minutes after you call them. I think that's what I was supposed to learn. But like if you watch porn, you think, "Oh, everyone has a butt plug in." Like that's just super common.
I thought you weren't going to say anything on air about it. That's why I keep shifting in my chair.
I know. I was wondering about if you could say something. Which color are you up to?
It's the lighting. It's the light one, so it changes. It's like a slow changing light. When I bend,
I've got a loofah.
Yeah. Nice.
She lives on the second floor.
I don't get the reference.
Suzanne Vega. Google it.
Okay.
But don't Google loofah. Just do Susan Vega second floor. Because if you do loofah, you won't actually find it.
Yeah. Um. So anyway, do you have anything else to say about polyamory or non-monogamy?
Um, Nothing in particular. I think, like I said, I have a lot of friends who are in different versions of the community, and I think it's a fine and wonderful thing as long as it's an equal playing field with everyone involved. That they're all, and when I say equal playing field, I just mean everyone emotionally is on board with it the same way. Because it could be a thing where it's like, oh no, yeah, my spouse likes to go out and get late on business trips or whatever, and I'm cool with that. I'm not into it, but I don't do it, so that's fine too. It doesn't have to be a two-way street, as it were,
Yeah.
to me. But as long as it's not a my spouse is monogamous, I am not, and she'll never find out. Like that's not a cool.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. Should we start the thing?
We could. I don't have mine up so that I have it in front of me, my little script. I've got must have too many audio visual problems.
Well,
But I
well,
was thinking though, if I had it up, I would say something about, hey, if you're watching us on YouTube, and you're probably not because I commented in the comments and nobody replied, but if you were watching us on YouTube, go ahead and comment. Go ahead, reply to my comment. I dare you. I double dare you. Have a friend reply too. Have a thruple in the comments. But at least go ahead and like the video if you're watching it after the fact. Click over to the channel and subscribe to the channel. Even if you never watch a video again, it just helps us if you subscribe to the channel. And go ahead and ring the bell so you get notified when our stuff's on. Or at least make YouTube think you care. We don't care if you watch or listen or whatever. Just make the algorithm think you do. And to that end, if you're listening to the audio, there's ways you can manipulate that algorithm too. Michael?
if you're listening to the audio on any of the podcast platforms, go ahead and give us a subscribe or a follow, whichever your app calls it. Give us a 5-star review or a thumbs up, or if you actually
No,
write
not
or
thumbs up. You're not allowed to do thumbs up anymore. Apparently, the younger generation has decided that the thumbs up emoji is actually the middle finger emoji, and they get mad when we older people use it.
yeah, I don't know. I'm in the older generation, I guess.
Yep.
As this gray that I
It's the Z's don't like the millennials now. We X's, we're out, man. We don't get involved. You guys fight. You
yeah,
have your war with the boomers. We're just watching.
war with the
We're left
boomers.
home with latchkey kids. We're not involved in any of this shit.
Anyway, like and subscribe on all
Here's
the
a
different
pussy, everybody.
podcast platforms. But right now, I also wanted to mention before we get into the pay stuff, we'll get into the semi-pay stuff. I didn't realize this, but Patreon, you can actually subscribe for free. And I'm going to make on there so that it'll be the same deal. So you can listen through Patreon if you're using Patreon for other stuff. Because we are putting up other things on Patreon that you might want to see and that at least see the option for. So go on patreon.com talking about the big stuff. And you can just subscribe for the free one if you want, because that will have some stuff there. Additionally, we just started a new Patreon for Chocolate Diamond Media, which is the company that we own that runs Talking About the Big Stuff. It's kind of going to be a bundle pack so that you can, anything that we sell, whether it's this podcast or the other podcast, you have those options. But
A delightful T-shirt.
yeah, t-shirts and stuff. But the big thing is if you subscribe on there, you're going to get updates on. If you just subscribe on the freebie version, you're going to get updates on when we have new shit coming out, including that new podcast that we're.
And at my age, there's not a new shit every day.
Oh my! I'm very regular. Sometimes multiple times a day.
It's worth the news.
Yeah. So anyway,
So go ahead, subscribe. But you know what? If you do
want to get
have disposable income and you're on the Patreon already, why not throw us a couple of shekels?
yeah. It will make.
What do they get if they throw us a couple of shekels, Michael?
They get less censored. I won't say uncensored because I still cut a lot of your shit out. So the only way to get uncensored is to
And
be
I don't
here.
shit that often, so it's rare shit he's cutting out.
Yeah. If you want the true uncensored version, you need to be here live. Because after that, Matthew almost always makes a joke that I'm going to cut out. Not so far tonight.
I, I'm a sweetheart.
Yeah.
I'm a lovable guy.
But so we have a $1 option, which is also available on Apple Podcasts if you want that. And that's just the same version, but it's 4 days early. Then we have the $3.
So it's a premature episode.
Yeah. Which, we could talk about that.
Keep it in your pants.
Yep. And then we have a $3.
Premature in your pants. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understood. Then we have a $3 episode, $3 level for the episodes, which is, it's really probably the biggest bang for your buck, honestly, because that's where most of the uncensored stuff goes. You're going to get some really filthy shit there. And then the $10 version, that's if you're being nice to us. You don't really give a shit about getting all the uncensored stuff, because you're only getting a little more for that as of right now. If we get more $10 patrons, maybe we will expand.
Right now, it's just one sentence over and over again you get in there.
What's the one sentence?
I can't say it. Nobody will know what it is because they'll only hear it over there.
No, it's not. It's not the only thing I cut out of the other versions. But I have been cutting less, not a ton out of because I want the $3 version to be for anybody that wants to give us a little bit of money. Okay. That's why I'm getting other podcast lovers. Is because you say shit like that, so I can't be monogamous to you.
Now you got to figure out which version that goes in. Categorize that.
I'm leaving that in the freebie version. We'll see. We'll see what happens. It really comes down to when I'm listening to it, I'm like, I do like a little.
If it makes me erect, it goes in the $10 version, if it makes me ejaculate, it's cut.
Yeah. Or if it's about my ejaculate, it's cut.
If it's about ejaculate, it's cut.
All right. You got any last thoughts?
I don't know. My only last thought is to say thank you all for talking about the big stuff with us. Doing it just the two of us is boring. We need other people.
The preceding podcast has been a Chocolate Diamond Media LLC production. Copyright 2023, all rights reserved.